straightness or the crookedness of a line if you have a rule by which to measure it against, right? I'm paraphrasing. So these are some of the issues we have to think about. And we're not picking on any one group. In my country, I would give you the example of weed. So 30 years ago, if I was selling you weed on the streets of Toronto, I would be arrested. I would be put into jail or fined or something, right? Now, 30 years later, and 30 years is not a long span of time in the grand scheme of things. 30 years later, again, I would say we're not just condoning it, I would say we're celebrating it. It's hard. Every other street corner, every second block in Toronto, cannabis store. As a society, we've decided that cannabis stores on every block is a brilliant, wonderful idea. This is going to do wonders, apparently, for our youth down the line. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's celebrated in the sense that, look, it's tax revenue for the government, and never mind if some future generation or some future government is going to have to give back just as much in subsidies to fund the drug rehabilitation of people who are suffering from that, or who have used that as a gateway drug into harder drugs. So this is another problem too, that when you speak about what's beneficial and what's a good idea, we humans don't tend to think about what's a good idea for my grandchildren. We think about what's a good idea for me, right? Drinking alcohol right now in the bar is a good idea for me. It benefits me, makes me feel good. It's a social lubrication, helps me bond with my buddies from work. 10 minutes later, I could be in a drinking and driving accident. I'm not thinking about that. So we believe that God, who has all the foresight, who is the all-knowing, he is in a better position to tell us what is truly good and beneficial for us in the long run, for our grandchildren. Because if we continue on the road we're on right now, a lot of you folks aren't going to have grandchildren, man. If you don't marry, if you don't have kids. So you need a worldview, you need a faith that, I'm changing topics, sorry, a little bit, but you need something that incentivizes marriage. You need something that incentivizes wanting to have 4 or 5 kids, even if it means you can't do that summer holiday to Greece. You can't have that winter cottage up north for us Canadians. Yeah, it's okay, man. There's other good reasons for me to want to have 4 or 5 kids. I'm a hypocrite, by the way. I've only got 1, but I'd love to have 3 or 4.
This is something very important the brother said is about the morality. We talked about morality, and that you brought the example of the Bible. Why there is so many things that in the Bible that now the community, Muslim community, the Christian community, we don't abide with. The concept of scripture in Islam is totally different than in Christianity. We believe, and it has been revealed to us, that the previous scriptures has been given to the prophets and to the people, and it has been misused and corrupted. And then God All-Wise has revealed the last revelation to Muhammad, and that revelation is sealed from all corners in terms of preservation, in terms of memorization, all that. And inside that revelation, there is the objective morality, how we should live our lives, and all that stuff. And if you compare the Christian society or Jewish society and the Muslim society, the laws have been given to us by the Almighty. In terms of the consensus or the Muslim society, we all agree and abide by it. I mean, you can see Muslims smoking, you can see Muslims drinking, but it's not a group consensus that they say in Ramadan. You know Ramadan? Muslims they eat, but they eat is hiding. So it's not a general, like here for example, everyone eats pork. The Bible says everyone here eats Big Mac, that you shouldn't eat blood. Also, now in the Bible, dietary laws and all that stuff. So what I'm saying is that there is the final revelation which came through the Prophet Muhammad, which is overpowering all the other revelations, and that revelation is sealed and has been preserved since day one. in Birmingham Library, there's a manuscript of about 3 chapters or 3 chapters, which has been carbon dated to the date of the Prophet. So in terms of preservation, there is no doubt about it. So from your side, what you need to confirm is that is there a necessary being which is outside of our universe, which is we call God, we call Allah, and after that try to find out is there, he try to communicate to us, if he communicate to us which is the religion, the last religion and the last message that came, and he just scrutinize that message, the messenger first of all, and then the message, and then try to falsify it, just find falsification test, and if you come to a conclusion, then all what you have now in your belief, which is what you just mentioned earlier, all of it is inside of Islam. It's just now you have a connection with the creator of all this universe, which of course, you are a scientist, and we know that something doesn't come from it. And any type of order requires an intelligence behind it, and any type of information,
an engineer behind it.
An engineer behind it. Like for example, I was talking to someone about the DNA, and the DNA, everyone agrees that DNA is a complicated type of information. Even Bill Gates said if it is a software, it is the most complicated type of algorithm and software, where all the what's it called, the DNA and the RNA and all that stuff, amino acid, all the amino acid when they combine together in a certain shape and certain form. So, and everyone agrees that any type of information, I'm doing like computer engineering, and I have done a lot of software programming. And if you see any simple program, what do you say? Definitely there is a program behind it. There's a program. Yeah. So when we see all this universe with all its beauty and the way it has been created to sustain itself, like for example a tree dies, there is a seed comes down, and then another tree comes up, the fruits they never finish. There's a cycle going on. So from here we can see that there is a creator, there is a designer behind it. And then if you accept that there is a designer, there is a creator, and there is a revelation, then you have this revelation.
And I would summarize it just very, very quickly. Then I'd love to hear your reflections and thoughts on all of the stuff we've been talking about. But I'd just like to say very quickly that in general, the idea of God creating the universe, it should not bother you that this is some kind of unscientific belief, because even if you scratch an agnostic or an atheist enough, if you push them into a corner, everyone will end up in a supernatural corner at some point. We didn't really discuss the origins of the universe or what you believe, but the 3 options that occur to me are, the deist option, that there's a deity, there's a supreme program maker, deity engineer that designed all of this. That's not anti-science, but it's not scientific in the sense that we will never prove that scientifically. Or you can believe in an eternal universe, or an eternal string of eternal universes. Again, you'll never prove that in your science lab. Or you could believe in the universe just creating itself out of truly nothingness. And again, this would be a supernatural belief in as far as you can never, scientifically demonstrate. So if we think about these, sometimes the problem is that we haven't thought about these, questions. But if we think about these questions long and hard enough, each one of us will end up in a supernatural position of some sort or the other. Or the cop out of, we just don't know. Yeah, that's the point. And there's no scientific reason to believe that we will know. There's no scientific reason to believe that we will one day understand the origins of science, the origins of nature itself. But please be frank about any other reservations, complaints. Like, you can feel at ease with us. We're not. We're used to hearing people bringing up objections, and it's not a problem. But again, at the very least, just keep an open mind. Anyhow, in case our conversation ends abruptly at some point and you have to go or I have to go, I would even say, I don't know if my brother would agree, but I would even say that this kind of experiential approach that many Westerners are taking towards Buddhism, which is like, you know, I haven't signed up for Buddhism, I haven't signed up for Taoism, but I make use of these practices. I would say, okay, experientially, taste Islam. You know, what you did for those other world faiths. Did you ever bow down your head to Allah in the mosque? You know, maybe you have. I don't know. And for some reason, a lot of non-Muslims will like fast a day or two in Ramadan, maybe to demonstrate solidarity with their Muslim friends or something. Me personally, I'm not convinced that you going hungry would be the best way of you experiencing Islam. I would say try the prayer. What's the harm? You're not signing up. No one's gonna say now you gotta sign the dotted line. With a Muslim friend, with any one of us, you're welcome to take anyone's number, email, whatnot. Try the Muslim form of the prayer. Try that. See what that does for you. There'd be no harm.
Have you come across
I've heard of it, but I can't bring
how is it stipulated? It says anything that begins to exist on the coast. Yeah. When we look at our natural environment, anything has a cause. So and then also, this is the first statement. The second statement says the universe began to exist. Do you go with a big man?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been tested, and Einstein also agreed with this, and Edwin Hubble, when he was looking at the stars and saw the galaxies moving away. So we have objects spreading out. If you go back in history, in the timeline, you go back to a singular point. So the universe began to exist. Therefore, the third statement says the universe has a cause. That's the second. Anything that begins to exist has a cause.
Yeah.
The universe began to exist. Therefore,
That must be
the
cool.
universe must have a cause. The cause that ignites that singularity, single point where the beginning starts.
But could the cause be a pre-existing universe? Because there's the big crash. Because our universal expansion is decreasing.
Is it multiverse?
Not necessarily. So there's...
Okay, what caused that universe?
So we have the universe and it's expanding. But if it were to reach a point where it stops expanding and then contracted down to a single point, and then had a second big bang, then it could be a perpetual string of pre-existing universes. So not necessarily multiverse, but singular.
It's a theory of oscillating universe.
Yeah.
Expanding, going back to Speakerscorner and expanding.
Yeah.
But this theory also begs the question of what started that oscillation.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because if we go with a never-ending series of Big Bang and big crunches and Big Bang and big crunches, so it still begs the question. We've just moved the question one step back. We'd still ask, where did this series of expansions and contractions begin? If it was infinite, again, there would be no, we would never, that would be an unscientific, that would also be a supernatural belief, but one that has been kind of chosen arbitrarily or randomly, in my opinion. And by the way, again, I'm not big with the science in the Quran thing, but I do think it is very interesting or fascinating that in chapter 21 of the Quran it says, do not be unbelievers. With all due respect, it's saying unbeliever. So it's interesting that it's speaking more to you actually than it is to us right now. This is something the author of the Quran wants to bring to your attention for some reason. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together before we clove them asunder? We made from water every living thing, will they not then believe? So there seems to be an indication. Yeah, this could be an allusion to the idea that everything started from a single point. Not only the continents on the earth, but the planets themselves. Everything was one single point, as you put it. and then it was expanded or rent asunder, as it puts it in the English there. So these are some interesting allusions in the Quran.
I mean, what needs to be understood in terms of to understand this phenomenon is that as a scientist, we have to agree that infinity as a physical entity does not exist.
Yeah.
I really agree. I mean, all mathematicians say infinity is just math in paper.
Right.
Like, for example, oscillating universe, you cannot oscillate forever because infinity does not exist. Like, for example, let me give you an example. For example, when I talk to atheists, everything is out of God, believe us, you got to prove that, and I say, it's to me, I say, okay, this code has to be anchored, and this code has to be powerful, because it means the whole universe. So that's one of the things. It has to be knowledgeable, because it creates laws. Powerful, knowledgeable, has the will to bring things into existence. And then he says, okay, you call him God or you call him Allah, then who created Allah? Who created this cause? So that's very simple to go back and rebate. It's like the infinite regress. So if you ask me who created that first cause, and then I'll say to you, who created the cause that created that cause? And then who created the cause that created the cause that created the cause? And then there is this open razor, he says, the best solution is the most simple. If you have so many solutions, the simplest one is the ultimate one. So we necessarily have to stop at the first place.
Yeah.
Because the second cause, of course, the first cause, and the first cause is root cause. And then if you go back into infinity, it's impossible. Why? Because we are here. Like, for example, there is a brother, Hamza, used to give this example of trying to make it a shop. You have to ask his experience. His experience says, I have to ask my superior. And he goes, if it goes on forever, you just want to take the shop.
It's not objective, which is why my morality is different to my mother's.
So that's stopping somewhere. We call it
Slightly different to marrying. Morality changes with time and geography. So how can it be objective?
Occam's razor and speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it also reminds me, I mean, we didn't get into Trinity because we don't really need to, because you're not, I don't think you're considering returning to Christianity, but I think it's still worth mentioning that, remember when I said Islam and Christianity are like twin brothers, so superficially they resemble each other, but there's underlying profound differences. Even before Adam and Eve, it starts from the very concept of God itself. It starts from the very, so yes, Jews, Christians, Muslims, we all say there's only one God. Even Christians say there's only one God. So they are professed monotheists. However, and there's a big however, there's a big but, that one God is three persons in Christianity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. So I think you probably already know and understand that we, as Muslims, we're not calling you to a Trinity God. We're calling you to an absolute single one power. That is the originator of the heavens and the earth. And there's no such divisions of God. That too, I think even, by the standard of Occam's razor, for what it's worth, it is a simpler solution. It does avoid an unnecessary philosophical problem. It's an unnecessary problem. There's no good reason why, if I was just a human being lost in the desert, never having been exposed to any religious tradition, there's no pressing intellectual need for why I should conclude. There's no pressing need for why I should conclude, based on my own thinking, based on my own natural philosophy, that,